Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Johanna and Nick at Congress Coffee for hosting us. We're gathered on Treaty 7 territory, home to Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai nations, the Ithka Stoney Nakoda Nation, consisting of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney bands, the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Northwest Métis and Otipemisiwak Métis government representing Nose Hill and Elbow Métis districts. We're here today in a place that represents so many Albertans. People working hard, often balancing school, family, or other jobs, just trying to make ends meet. As MLA for Calgary-Klein, I'm proud to represent this riding and this beloved small business and bustling community hub here in Greenview Industrial. I'm proud to be an Alberta New Democrat standing alongside workers, students, and everyday Albertans. I'm so glad to welcome our leader, Naheed Nenshi, and MLA for Calgary-Mountain View, Kathleen Ganley, along with all of you, young, hardworking Albertans who could join us today. Without further ado, I'll turn things over to the Leader of the Official Opposition, Naheed Nenshi.
Well, thanks very much, Lizette. What a pleasure to be here in Calgary-Klein. Thanks for having us in Greenview Industrial. Now, I will tell you that when Johanna told me she was planning on opening a super cool coffee shop and music place in Greenview Industrial, I might have said, it's a choice. But this is a bustling, wonderful community hub here at Congress, and I'm so happy, Nick. Thank you so much for inviting us to be here with you today. And it's great to see so many folks here today, along with many of the folks standing behind me. Thank you so much for being here. I promise not to talk for too long. That's a lie. But we will continue this. And this is symbolic of what we're trying to do. Throughout this summer, we have heard from Albertans that their number one concern is affordability and the cost of living. And there's a number of things you can do to deal with inflation and reduce prices, but one of the most important things you can do is protect people's paychecks. And that's what we're trying to do today with Bill 201. Whether you're serving coffee or working retail or managing shift work in hospitality, you deserve to know that your work is valued, that your paycheck is protected, and that you can live with less financial fear. Right now, Albertans are treading water, struggling to keep up with rising costs. We're seeing that across the board, in insurance and groceries and housing. The most recent StatCan data shows that more than 1/4 of Calgary households, and remember, Calgary is still the richest city in the country, and more than 1/4 of our households are financially struggling to make ends meet every month. 1/3 of Calgary households, including many, many people who are going to work every day, are struggling with food insecurity. Albertans are working harder than ever and falling further behind. Our government, the UCP government, has failed to take any meaningful actions to reduce the cost of living. They've actually made life much more expensive. Higher insurance premiums, skyrocketing utility bills, and an inability to control the cost of housing. And to make matters worse, minimum wage here in Alberta has not increased since 2018. It is now the lowest in the country. The richest jurisdiction with among the highest cost of living and the lowest minimum wage in the country. In addition, we have the highest rates of youth unemployment in the country and the highest unemployment rate for people overall outside of the Maritimes, outside of Atlantic Canada. That's why we're taking action to protect Calgary's paychecks, and that's why I'm so thrilled that my colleague Kathleen Ganley has introduced Bill 201 in the legislation, the Protect Workers' Pay Act. This bill would increase the minimum wage and help protect your paycheck. We're here today because we want people to know that Monday is a crucial day in the legislature. This bill will come up for a vote. This bill that will increase the minimum wage in a way that is methodical, in a way that will not badly impact business, but will really help people earning minimum wage. In fact, it'll help all wage earners in Alberta. This bill that will protect servers and hospitality workers so that tips that customers give do go directly to them comes to a vote on Monday. We'll all vote for it. But on Monday, it'll be up to the UCP. It'll be up to the United Conservative Party MLAs who will decide whether Alberta's minimum wage will finally increase, whether we will no longer be the only jurisdiction in Alberta that does not index the minimum wage to inflation, and whether we remove the minimum wage. Or whether we will, the youth minimum wage, or whether we'll remain the lowest in the country. Bill 201 is a chance for all MLAs to vote in favor of workers, in favor of affordability, in favor of better wages. It's an easy yes for us, and we hope it's an easy yes for Alberta's UCP MLAs. But Kathleen Ganley is here, and she's actually going to walk you through some more details on the bill and what we hope to accomplish. Kathleen?
Thank you. Thank you, Naheed. On Monday, every MLA in Alberta will have a choice. They'll be able to vote to support workers and affordability, or vote to keep Alberta's minimum wage the lowest in the country. Bill 201, the Protect Workers' Pay Act, is a straightforward, practical solution. First, it would increase Alberta's minimum wage. It would go to $16 this year, $17 next year, and $18 in 2027. After that, it would index to inflation so that it keeps pace. Bill 201 would also eliminate the youth minimum wage. Many people don't even realize that here in Alberta, you can pay people under 18 as low as $13 an hour for the same work as other people getting paid more. Can you imagine trying to save for university or college on those wages? This youth minimum wage was implemented by the UCP in 2019, and it has done absolutely nothing to support youth employment. On the contrary, Alberta now has some of the highest youth unemployment in the country. Young Albertans deserve equal pay for equal work. Bill 201 would also introduce tip protections. When people tip, they expect it to go to the workers who serve them. This bill would make sure employees who have earned the tips get to keep them. It excludes managers from tip pools unless they perform the same work as the employees. So for small business owners in very small businesses who serve as a cook, they would still be eligible to earn tips. Most provinces have already stepped up and passed similar legislation to protect tips, and it's really time that Alberta did the same thing and caught up. In developing this bill, we talked with the Chambers of Commerce, with small business owners, and with workers to understand how to get the best approach. What business told us is that they need time to plan for cost increases. So we balanced that against the fact that for workers, this really is urgent, with many having to work multiple jobs or rely on food banks just to stay afloat. While costs have ballooned, wages haven't been keeping up. Minimum wage hasn't gone up in this province in 7 years. If this bill comes into law, we would continue to consult with small businesses on what would best support them. Many are dealing with large increases in costs like insurance or rent and food, things that the UCP have been very clear they have no intention of doing anything about. I would now like to turn things over to Sam, who can speak more to what this bill would mean for young Albertans who are just trying to get by.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sam La Liberté Mote. I'm a first-year university student, which means I am no stranger to a tight budget. Like almost all university students, I work part-time in order to cover my tuition. The reality is, without tuition support, I simply would not be able to cover the cost of my program. Many of my peers are working harder than ever at wages as low as $13 an hour. Bill 201 offers a way forward for young people. We must bring youth up to an increased minimum wage to ensure we are paid equally for equal work, so that we can afford to live. Between the rising costs of housing, groceries, tuition, and insurance, Alberta's youth are overdue for a fair shot. It is clear that Danielle Smith's government does not care about young people or their futures. Young Albertans deserve a better government, a government focused on youth, and that is a government led by Naheed Nenshi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. I want to invite our next speaker, Sahaj.
There you are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, MLA Nenshi, MLA Ganley, and MLA Tejada for having me. My name is Sahaj, and I'm an accounting student at SAIT who also works part-time. Balancing school and work is stressful enough as it is. between classes, assignments, and exams, and shifts at work, my attention is constantly being pulled towards everything. So, on top of that, affordability is kind of a real challenge. Tuitions, phone bills, even just budgeting for meals. It all adds up, everything seems to be getting more expensive. And increasing the minimum wage would give not only a breathing room, but would also allow students to focus more on studies and without any constant worrying about tuitions or their groceries or their other expenses. I really hope MLAs will support Bill 201 for the sake of hundreds and thousands of Albertans who are in the same boat and who are just trying to get on by 15 an hour. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sahaj. I'll now invite our next speaker, Taimur.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taimur, and I'm here for one reason only. Because I believe Albertan workers deserve better. Now, I've worked minimum wage before, and I still have friends that do so now. So I know what it's like to stretch every dollar, to have to choose between groceries or gas. And that's a reality for far too many Albertans today. Now, let me be clear. This bill is no luxury. Raising the minimum wage is the bare minimum. No one working full-time should struggle to afford their groceries or be sleeping in their car at night. Eliminating the lower youth minimum wage, I think that's what they call it, it's absurd. We need to be protecting our youth's wages, and we need to be protecting our workers' tips. Alberta is behind, and Bill 201 is how we start catching up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and next up we have Kathleen Ganley again.
Thank you. So on Monday, the UCP government has a clear choice to make of supporting young and minimum wage workers in Alberta. It's my hope that they will join the Alberta New Democrats and vote yes on Bill 201 to improve wages and take action on making life more affordable for those who need it the most. Bill 201 is about restoring fairness. It's about protecting workers' pay and helping Albertans to keep up with the rising cost of living. It's a chance to do the right thing, and we're calling on every MLA in the legislature to do that. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions.
All right, thanks, folks. We'll now move to questions. So we'll do a first pass for questions in the room. And just a reminder for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. Right, we'll move on to Zoom. So our first question comes from Josh Hall from Red Deer News Now. Josh, your line should be open.
So yesterday, the Alberta Living Wage Network put out its latest report, and most municipalities are over $20 in terms of what would be needed for somebody to be able to live and not have so much stress. And in a statement yesterday that we received from the UCP that we haven't published just yet, they mentioned that between 2015 and 2018, 21,000 young Albertans lost their jobs as a result of the 47% increase to minimum wage. Obviously, that's a shot at the NDP because that's when the party was in power. I'm hoping you can first off just respond to that.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to say is that they're pulling that number from a UCP report that was designed to essentially generate the results that they are now citing. So they wanted evidence that minimum wage increases harmed youth employment, and they went out and sought it. And I mean, you can get a report to say just about anything. What I would say in terms of the facts is that currently Alberta has the lowest minimum wage in the country and an even lower youth minimum wage, and we have the highest youth unemployment in the country. So obviously those things are not correlating in the way they would suggest. I also think it's worth noting that a Parkland Institute report talks about hospitality and food services, which is the sector in which most minimum wage jobs exist. And it actually added jobs every year between 2015 and 2019, over 13,000 over the course. So I think this is about that, but it's also about the fact that I believe that same report, the living wage report, says that now here in Calgary, the living wage is $26 an hour. So, this bill proposal, it's not radical. It's phased in over time to recognize the needs of small business, but we do need to do something. People who are working full-time jobs are relying on food banks to feed their kids, and that it's not right.
Do you have a follow-up,
Could I
Josh?
follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. In the same statement that I was alluding to that we received from the UCP, they mentioned that Alberta has the lowest provincial income tax. They mentioned that there's no PST. They say Alberta is the best place in Canada to live, work, and raise a family. They say they're cutting taxes. And they mentioned the Alberta Youth Employment Initiative. Just reading the tea leaves, it doesn't really seem like they have any interest in raising the minimum wage. So come Monday when that vote occurs, and I don't want to say it's inevitable that they're going to vote against it, but let's say they do, then what would the NDP's next step be, and how would that look on Alberta, do you think?
Great, thanks for that. I agree with one thing in that statement, that Alberta is the best place in the country to live, to work, and to raise a family. But the Alberta Advantage is eroding, and it's eroding quickly. So despite all the things they say, their biggest affordability measure was that they gave people a maximum $2 a day tax cut, which was immediately eaten up in most cities by the massive increase in property taxes that the UCP put in the same budget. They increased property taxes here in Calgary by 15%. So it's all smoke and mirrors. But what we know is since the UCP took power, utility rates have as much as tripled. Housing has gotten more out of control, and we continue to have the highest auto insurance rates in the country. And their plan to regulate auto insurance rates increases them by another 7.5% come January 1st. So we'll go from the highest in the country to the highest in the country. 31% of Calgary families struggle to make it to the end of the month. 1/3 of Calgary families, people working full-time, rely on the food bank. That's no Alberta Advantage. If you go to work every day, you deserve to live without fear when you get to the till of the grocery store. And fundamentally, that's all we're asking for. So unlike the UCP, we've talked to workers, we've talked to small businesses, we've talked to the chambers of commerce, we've talked to large businesses, we've talked to labor. And we think that what we're putting forward is a thoughtful, reasoned way. Look, if we wanted to go straight to living wage immediately, it would make a lot of difference for a lot of people, but it would also be very disruptive. So we're being measured, we're being thoughtful. The UCP is burying their head in the sand and pretending there's nothing to see here when poverty and real challenges that people are having every day are growing in ways that should never happen in a jurisdiction this rich. So the UCP has a choice on Monday. Their choice is to vote for this bill or to continue to do nothing for workers and for low-wage earners in Alberta. We, however, will continue to fight, will continue to protect people's paychecks, and I can't say too much because of weird legislative rules, but relatively soon we will have another motion before the House that will help Alberta take real action on grocery prices. So we will continue to fight for citizens, and we will continue to fight to protect people's paychecks.
All right, our next question goes to Jack Farrell, Canadian Press. Jack, your line should be open.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Sorry for an off-topic question. I wanted to ask you, essentially for your response to Angela Pitt, kind of going after one of her own constituents and saying that he's weaponizing his position as a high school principal in pushing his recall campaign against her. What are your kind of thoughts on that and Pitt going after a constituent?
It's absolutely disgusting. This is the UCP government that, when a student disagreed with them, suggested he be spanked. And now, when a constituent suggests that they disagree with her, she says that they're abusing their taxpayer-funded position. Note to Angela Pitt, you're abusing your taxpayer-funded position. Right. You're using government resources, taxpayer resources, to go after one of your citizens. I think it's disgusting. But it's very, very clear what is happening here. UCP members are being, if you're being fancy, hoisted on their own petard. If you're being less fancy, they're in what the internet calls the find out phase. They passed this legislation. As recently as a year ago, Danielle Smith was cheerleading for this legislation when it was used against Jyoti Gondek in Calgary. And now suddenly they're saying this is not the point of recall legislation. Folks who believe that if they got the Conservative nomination, they'd have a job for life and never face any criticism, are suddenly having to talk to their constituents. And their constituents are mad. So whether you're Demetrios Nicolaides or Angela Pitt or Dale Nally or RJ Sigurdsson, you're starting to hear criticism. Oh my goodness, you actually have to talk to citizens. And they're responding with anger and an unbelievably thin skin. Here's the deal. I don't like recall. That's not a legislation I would have put forward, but it is the law. And for them to now pretend that it was only for people with criminal records. If that was the rule, they should have just written a law that said if you have a criminal record, you can't be an MLA. But they didn't do that. They wrote a law that they themselves cheerleaded and amended and said this is about keeping politicians honest between elections, and now that people are trying to keep them honest, they're suddenly scared of it. The Premier in the legislature actually compared grandmas going door to door in Bowness talking to their neighbors to militants trying to overthrow the government. That is contempt for citizens. You believe in democracy, it means you believe in democracy for everyone, not just people that agree with you.
Right, and do you have a follow-up, Jack?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Awesome, we'll do one last pass for questions. All right, and with that, that concludes our press conference. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, everyone.